Oh no! Fancy knowing how to make any neck profile you want? Keep watching. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to King Bespoke Creations. It's neck day. So I want to get the neck profile done, which is what's going on the back of the neck. And I want to show you a trick that allows you to create any neck profile you want. Whether that's a big fat baseball bat thing or slightly pointy, or in this case, we're going to do asymmetrical. Now, before we can start attacking the back of it though, I think it's helpful to have the fretboard on because that's a part of the neck that you feel. So I want that attached to it as well, which means we need to fit the truss rod. Right, I've marked off here and here, which is where the ends of the truss rod goes, like that. I have a center line already drawn on this from when I drew it all out to scale. So all I need to do now is chisel that out. Now, obviously the traditional way of doing a truss rod these days is to get the big fat router with a fence on it, or even a jig that you've made purposefully with extra cluttering up inside the workshop. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to use hand tools. And then some people will say, well, hand tools, that means you've got an old-fashioned plough plane or something like that that can run through and make that straight cut. No, I don't have one of those either. What I do have is a 6mm chisel and a mallet, and let's make a straight line. Simple enough. Now, I know some people with chiseling worry about going in a straight line, or worry about the chisel not going in straight and you end up angling like this. One of the ways to fix both of those is to get a big straight piece of wood, clamp that, or even masking tape and super glue. I think I'll probably be clamping it. And then all you need to do then is make sure that your chisel just runs along the edge of there as you chisel in. So we're not pushing hard because then it flex out. You can hold it down here with fairly light pressure at this point, and then you can just tap the top of the handle, and that's going to go in nice and straight. And as a depth marker, very, very simple. Just a little bit of masking tape. A fence is a good option when you're just starting out. What I'm going to do is actually just draw a very sharp pencil line all the way along there. That is where the edge of my chisel needs to go. So I'm going to remove that now and just work to that line. Morning. Truss rod in. So now we're going to measure and sort out the sides of the neck before fitting the fretboard on. Oh, can you do me a favour? Can you just click that little subscription button that's down here for me? That'd be great. Even if you don't like what you see, can you do it anyway? Because my wife said yesterday, when I get to 100,000 subscribers, I can have a motorbike. So just click that and then tell all your mates, will you? Cheers. How can anyone ever say that oak is a boring wood? But beautiful. There we go, one neck with a truss rod and a fretboard fitted, ready to be shaped on the back. So that's what we're going to do now. Normally, when you buy a guitar, it generally just has a constant arc over the back of the neck, in varying different shapes and thicknesses. What we're going to look at today, though, is how to do an asymmetrical neck, which means that the center line of your curve isn't in the center. So here's a couple of necks. Okay, so we have a center line on both of these. Okay, now the standard, and you've probably seen this before, is to half that distance and half the distance down the middle of there as well. Now all we need to do is then connect that line and that line together like that, and then we half that distance and half that distance and connect those two lines together until you end up with a series of straight lines that creates your nice curve. Very simple. So once you've got that, you can see that is just straight lines that's done through there. So you just keep going like that, and eventually you're just going to be sanding all of that and it's going to be nice and smooth. Okay, but what if we want a different neck profile? Well, how about we bring the center line, instead of halving this distance, we move it a little bit closer in to that center point like that, and then half down the sides. What difference does that make? We end up with a different profile. So this is going halves from the very beginning, and then this one is narrowing those first two lines, and you get a slightly pointier cross section. So you can see that this slopes in further at this point. So what if we mess about with those lines a little bit more? Well, what if we don't put the original center line in the center? What if we move it over a little bit? Let's go as far as that. This is where we end up getting asymmetrical neck profiles. So I'm still going to then half that distance and half that distance and connect those two lines, and I'll half that distance and half that distance and connect those two lines, and you can imagine there the neck profile will look more like that. So you're going to have a curve at the top that side and then a long slope heading down here, so you'll end up with a profile a little bit more like that. Now you might be asking, well, why would you do that? Well, there's two arguments. One of them is a sound basis, which is probably as debatable as tone woods. Fight me in the comments. The bigger reason, and the reason I'm going for, is ergonomics. It's to try and make it fit your hand a little bit better. Let me show you what I mean. So this is a test carve that I've done on a piece of scrap pine. And what I've done is I've moved that center line further up the neck. So as I'm playing it like this, it fits into the crook of my hand better. Now this works well for those of you that play your guitar down on your knees like you're in a grunge band, because it allows your fingers to still curve around because there's less mass at the bottom. Or in my instance, I tend to play with my thumb over the top to either grab a note or more likely to just mute that E string. So I think up here at the nut end of the neck, I want that high point to be on the bass side of the neck. But what happens when we move up the neck. Well, I don't know about you, but when my arm moves up the neck, my hand tends to rotate. So do we want that center section to stay parallel? I don't think we do. So on this test piece, you can see I've gone from up here and sloped it down to roughly central, back to normal, by the time we get to the heel. Now you could go full extremes and go from top corner to bottom corner if that's what you really wanted to do. I'm not going to go quite that savage today, but I think this is the way to go. So hopefully that all makes sense. Right, shall we now start attacking the neck and start taking some chunks off? So from this big square lump of neck that we've got so far, I want to get from the headstock area, that is the thickness of the neck that I actually want at its peak, running through to the same point. This is where the heel of the neck would be. So all of this that I've scribbled on, and get used to scribbling on bits of wood that you want to remove so you don't ever remove the wrong bit. That's what needs to come out before we can then start shaping. And yes, I'm going to use my favourite stop, cut and chisel technique. Or I could just bang some frets in there and call it a day. No? Okay. So we've established we're not going central. So this cut is roughly first fret, and that is about 44 millimeters wide at that point. Now when I did the test piece, I went 3/4 of the way up, and I think that might just be a tad too steep. So out of 44, I'm going to go for 30 millimeters. So that's what I'm heading for. So I've got almost 3/4, just a little bit short at this end. I'm central down here, so then we just draw straight lines and go from there. So that's our pinnacle line, as would have been a center line. So now all I'm going to do is again go back to halves again. So I'm just going to half from there to there. So I'm not including the fretboard, that will get rounded in later on. But up to there, and then same thing on this, but half from there to half point there. Now whether you're going to do the faceting with a rasp, one of these Shinto jobbies, or a nice spoke shave would do the job really well as well. The end sections tend to be quite tricky because you end up butting against that excess wood that we've got that we're leaving over for later. So let me show you how I get round that bit. So you probably won't be too surprised to find that we're using a saw for a stop cut. And yes, all I'm going to do is join up those lines. So I'm going to get the cut back to that line and do the same on this side down here. That should do it. And then the same on this one. Okay. So now we can go in with the chisel and just kind of shape in that end section there, leaving us enough room to then rasp away. So we're not trying to get the rasp tucked into the corner because they never really work very well like that. So that's the first set done, and you can already see that shape starting. Okay, so now it is just a matter of halving everything all the way through. So halving through this new cut that we've done, and then halving between the end of that new cut and the center line, and also from this line to half of that line, like that. Right, now once you've got to this stage, you can just see lots of straight lines all joined together. Basically you can play with it from there on in. So have a feel for the neck at this point. Do you think it wants a little bit more of this area? Are you happy with that area? See what you think. Yes, it still wants rounding over, but that's really done with, well, I'm going to use a card scraper for the vast majority of that. But does it want a bit more taken off? So I think on here where we've got this asymmetrical section, I want to take it off a little bit further from here, but I'm quite happy with the feel down this point. Now all I'm going to say here is try and keep that center line that we had for as long as possible. As soon as that disappears, it's very easy to start taking sections off one area of the neck up or down when we don't want to, and then you'll end up with a dish. So try and keep that center line in view for as long as you can to make sure that you're not going to end up with a bent neck. Ooh, that feels nice. I like that. So barring very final sanding, that's pretty much there now. Not that tricky to create any neck profile you want. All you're going to do is play with those lines, either spacing them further together or wider, or putting them off at a slant, and you can create any neck profile you want, and it really isn't difficult. Go and grab a long stick of pine and have a go. Okay, whether you want to use a plane, a rasp, a spoke shave, doesn't matter. As long as it removes wood, it'll work. Next time we're going to put the fret slots in. I'm not going to do the actual frets because I haven't made a fret radiusing jig yet, so that's a video that's going to be coming soon. So the fret slots can be cut. Remember, this is multi-scale, so obviously any kind of a jig won't work. We'll have to do that with measurements, and I think the first carving might come into play as well. So this pretty lady up here is going to be coming soon. So make sure you click that subscribe button, sharpen your tools, and I'll see you soon. God bless.